To Vance Ginn right now, the former Office of Management and Budget Chief Economist under Donald Trump. Speaking of Donald Trump, he is meeting and senators are gathering for this powwow on the Hill, not in the Capitol itself, but among those attending. And we'll be monitoring this very closely. Mitt Romney said at first he wouldn't be part of this, but he is going to attend this Senate event. Two other senators, Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Republicans both have opted out. So, Vance, what do you make of this powwow that's going on? A lot of it to try to mend fences for, the former president, especially with people like Mitch McConnell. That should be an interesting introduction. But how do you think it's going?
Hey, Neil, it's a pleasure to be with you today. It should be interesting. I mean, I think hopefully they'll get and go through some of the things they've had differences with and try to amend those fences, if you will, because we've got a lot of work to do over the next few years. And given what's happened in the election in November, that's going to be a big part of this. And the economy, many people are struggling across the economy, whether it's inflation, high interest rates. And so there's a lot to do. Hopefully they'll mend fences and get things heading in a good direction soon.
You were there when obviously Jerome Powell was selected by Donald Trump to be the Federal Reserve chair. He's not too keen on him these days, so it's clear he doesn't want him, there anymore or to sign up again for another term. How do you feel that relationship will go if he is elected president and he has to deal with Powell in the meantime?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that the Fed has been behind the curve on a lot of things the last few years. I mean, it's something that really needs to look at. Should he be at the helm of the Fed moving forward? And I think in general, we've seen a lot of financial regulations, and the FDIC is going to have a new chair here pretty soon. We need a lot of reforms that unleash the American potential and looking at the financial sector and otherwise, and that might mean someone else at the helm of the chair of the Federal Reserve.
And I know you work with the guy, but they've almost made him out to be Jesus Christ or Moses, his stewardship of the economy. That is Donald Trump. Now, of course, I don't blame entirely the COVID thing on him, but the COVID thing in that final year was what ultimately spelled his political doom. Do you think it is fair when numbers are compared in the Trump years versus the Biden years to just forget about that last COVID year?
I think it's important to look at what was happening, right, between 2017 and 2019, the Trump tax cuts, the deregulation that was going on, more economic growth. I think from that perspective, we saw a lot of pro-growth policies that supported more growth and more jobs and things of that nature. But it's also important to consider what happened during 2020. I mean, there were the lockdowns that took place. Right. There was a lot of economic strife that happened as well. So it is important to consider that.
That's why we had so little inflation, right? In retrospect, everyone was parked in their homes, right? That was a big chunk of it, right?
Well, that's a big part of it, Neil. But even before then, in 2018, 2019, there wasn't a lot of inflation either. The Fed wasn't printing a lot of extra money. So I think
they were
that's
keeping rates
at
close to zero. I always just feel perspective is lost sometimes over years. But always good talking to you, Vance. I really do appreciate it.